So we're going to talk about story works. Whenever I dug through psychology and started to really unweave and pull threads and unravel it, every single time, no matter how I unraveled and untangled the knots that be, it kept coming back to the same thing over and over again. Story. It was not only the common denominator, it was the origin. And there is something in the brain that's doing a whole don't look at that. And I've been doing this for almost 2 years now, 3 years, where every time I look at it, it's over there. And I'm like, why can't I get it right in my focal point? So this is me putting it in the focal point. Story, story. And what's interesting about this, you know, I'm gonna talk, I'm gonna talk mystical here for a minute. Bear with me. It feels like there's a spell wrapped around it that's preventing me from looking right at it. Like an evil spell has been wrapped around the core story and saying, oh no, you can't look at that. And my power is finally stronger than the story. And I can finally look right at it and go, oh, I see it. I'm looking right at it because my power is finally stronger than the spell. That's what it feels like. That's exactly what it feels like. And I know why too. And the reason why is because story is God. And somebody didn't want us looking at it. That's why. So I got story now right at my focal point. And I'm looking right at it. And I'm going, it's funny. I've done the math. You really should do the math too. Look up how much money we all spend on stories every year. That is music, books, and TV combined. That's a lot of money. And that right there is a huge testament that tells everybody how obsessed we are with story. I'm going, wow, we really love our story. And then in the year 2015, I did a panel discussion. I was a fantasy author back then. I'm still a fantasy author, but I was really I was this deep into my fantasy novels. And one of the panel discussions I hosted in 2015 was, what is up with story? Like, what is going on with human being and story? There's a thing here. And it was so popular and so boy, did it really bring in attention that it was the one panel okay, it was the two of the one panel discussion, one of two, that I repeated over and over again. So 5 years in a row, I kept having the same panel discussion because I couldn't figure it out. Like, what is going on with story? We are obsessed with it. So it's been on my radar. Now, mind you, while that's going on, I can't look at it. It's like, why can't I get it in the focal point? So this is what I noticed. I'm sitting here doing academic disciplines. I'm studying psychological physics. I'm doing quantum logic. I'm analyzing. And I'm going, what's weird? I say this. Why don't we have an academic discipline for story? Really weird. And that's been eating at me for 5 years. So from 2015 to 2020, I obsessed over this panel discussion of what is up with humans and story. And then when I was doing the reverse engineering of academic disciplines, I'm going, what is going on? Why isn't there an academic discipline of story? So there's more to this equation. I'm going to show you the other parts of the equation. I'm also sitting here researching history. And I'm digging deep. I mean, I'm in places. I'm surprised the articles are even existence. That's where I'm going, wow, someone actually wrote this article on this subject. I'm surprised this even exists. And I've been studying the subject for so long that as I'm digging, I know I'm finding new articles that people just figured out. So I'm sitting here reading articles and I'm going, I'm putting two and two together. And I'm going all the way back to like the origin of man in anthropology. And I wanted to know, archaeologically speaking, what is the very first sign of human? Now, people are immediately going to say the potter's wheel. And then they're going to say fire. And of course, they're going to bring up the cave paintings. Cave paintings. So I'm looking at these three things: pottery, wheels, cave paintings, agriculture. And then Göbekli Tepe pops up. Göbekli Tepe, in case you are not into archaeology, is currently the oldest anything ever. It's like 12,000 years old. Now, man has been around longer. We know this, but there's nothing left. We're not finding it. Okay? So, and I'm not talking about arrowheads. Oh, we're not talking about that crap, guys. Okay? I am talking about proof of like civilization, not proof that we're no longer hitting rocks together. Okay? Civilization. When did our sentience begin thinking beyond where the raven and crow are? Because if you watch Raven and Crows, oh, they're interesting to watch. They're doing weird shit. They're doing things that are on cat levels without thumbs. See, when you look at ravens and crows, they can problem solve better than most of us. That's saying something, guys. For most of us, the crows and the ravens have outsmarted a lot of humans. So I'm looking at these cravens and roes. We're going to call them cravens and roes now. I'm looking at these creatures and I'm going, So then I'm looking at human beings with their chiseled arrowheads going, yeah, that's just ravens and crow level. No, I want to know next level up. So that's where Göbekli Tepe comes in. Huge civilization, 12,000 BCE. And I'm going, okay. So now I'm asking, and of course the cave paintings go all the way back. We know that too. So I look up the cave paintings in France. They are the oldest so far that we've been able to find, and they go way back. And people are like, oh, art came first. And I'm looking at art going, that's not art, guys. That's a story. That's a story. And then I look over at the Taurus Mountains in Turkey. You know, the mountains at the head of the Tigris and Euphrates River, the Fertile Crescent. And I'm looking at them, and they've got these fire mounds. And I'm researching the history of these fire mounds. Basically, it's archaeological evidence that 10,000 years ago, human beings walked their asses up into the mountains to light a campfire and tell a story. And I went, wait a minute. So we literally have been doing the campfire and story forever? Yeah, that's right. We've been doing it forever. So it's official. The campfire and story is human. That is human. And now I'm going, whoa, which explains everyone's obsession with, I got to build a fire. Now this is getting interesting. So I'm looking at this going, and you know what the cave paintings are? I'll tell you what the cave paintings are. If you know Plato's allegory with his cave, this is going to make a whole lot more sense to you. I'll tell you what the cave paintings are. Those are the people who wouldn't get their asses outside to go look at the campfire to tell a story. Oh no, so they had to draw it on the wall. So you had people inside drawing it on the wall, hypothesizing what all the lights outside were. When you had people outside around the campfire, hey, why don't you come out here, Floyd? No, I'm going to draw it on the wall instead. Bottom line is that story is really old. And I'm looking at this going, what is up with story? Now, it's not that story is like, no, story is human, like nothing else is human. Fire story, human. Like, come on, people. And I'm looking at this going, why isn't this an academic discipline? I'll tell you why. Because story is God. Story is God. Every time I do the math, every time it keeps coming back to the same thing. And I'm going, okay, so story is God. And Then I sat there and I did psychology and I went, and I did psychological physics and I put it all together and I went, I got story. What the fuck? I got story? And then I sat down and I did power economics and I got story again. Dudes, I have reverse engineered over 7 disciplines and every time I come back to story. And I'm going, okay, origin is story. Oh, origin story. See what I mean? Origin story. It's in the name. Like it's almost redundant for my ears at this point. Origin story. No, you're saying the same thing. I'm hearing story, story. It explains our obsession with collecting it. See, now I understand. I'm a book reader. I'm one of those persons who never has enough bookshelves. And then they came out with ebooks and they were like, this will replace your library. No, it will add to it. Now I get to have a digital copy of all of my physical books. That's what happened with every reader in the world. Okay. Let's be honest with ourselves here. It was not in a place of, it was in addition to, and every reader went, yes, now I can have my physical books with me as always. Like it's a thing we do with our brains, okay? You're not going to take the story out of the reader. It's just not going to happen. I'm starting to see a pattern here. And what's extraordinary is every time I look right at it, it like shifts. It feels like a magnet, which is exactly how magic works. It feels like there's a magnet so that when my eyeballs look at it, it does this. And I'm like, physics. And I know that because this is physics, guys. So every time I look at it, it shifts. And I'm like, that's someone fucking with physics because I know physics. That is exactly what happens when you have two magnets at the wrong end in there. Like somebody has put a spell on this thing. So it's taken me this long to finally become this powerful so I can finally look at the goddamn magnet and go, don't you move. I'm looking right at you now. So story is God. God is story. We were made in that image. So we are all story now, which makes a lot of sense why we're obsessed with story. We're worshiping our gods. So story works. And here's the thing is I'm still trying to wrap my head around this and I'm trying to put it into words. Now I'm going to be blunt. This is the part that's really, really creepy for me. I've done this 7 times with 7 other disciplines. I know what it feels like. This one feels like someone's fucked around with it. I can feel the black magic around it. I really can. I can feel the alteration in the physics going, why is this one so much harder? It's because someone's tampered with it. Like somebody has put physics around it to say, do look at that, you can have that. Oh, I'm looking. So I'm going to look right at it this time. And I'm trying to form the name of this academic discipline. I want to call it logos. Now let's call it ology. So now I'm going to grab my phone and I'm going to look up the etymology of story. That's what I'm going to do. Because I have a feeling, I don't know what the etymology of story is. I can feel it too. I can feel it. Like I'm getting closer to something. Typing in etymology of story. Okay, historia, but it's telling me that Latin is the base, as if Latin is the first language. That's cute, arrogant asses. No, it is not. What did the ancient, so every time that comes up, the Latins are going, oh no, nothing was here before Rome. Don't look at that. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So we're going to do something different. What did the Greeks call story? So I know how do the little brains work. Okay, let's try this a little differently. Ancient Greek word for story is it looks like utopia. I am looking right at it. The word, doesn't that look like utopia? Logos and mythos. Oh, mythology! Yes, done. Why isn't this part of our curriculum? Oh my God! Story does mean God! Mythology! Oh my God, the logic of the gods. The logic of story. See, I knew those Greeks were honest. Okay. Mythology. Logosology. Logos was a fundamental word in ancient Greek and culture that meant speech and reason. Mythos was a type of story that referred to a founding story, not a fictional story as it is often thought of today. I told you someone lied. Okay, now this is going to be the fun part. I love doing this. We're going to see what ancient Persia says about the word story. So, ancient Persia. Ancient Persia has all the secrets. What do they call it? This is where it gets really difficult because there's so much dastan, dastan, dastan. This is a word I've never heard of before. Dastan, dastan. Wow. Shaname. It's another word for it. Means story or tale. So Scheherazade told 1,000 dastans. It was an oral story. There is like, this is it right here. This is really like, yeah, I'm enjoying this. So mythology, mythology. I can't use that because if I say that, people will not know. They'll think, oh, we're going to learn about, no, 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 no. We're going to learn about real story, guys. The science of story. So yeah, there it is right there. And this is where I can see it. I can feel it. And there's this huge pressure, like, why can't I look right at it? And it's a blinding spell. It reminds me of, I'll tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of I know this. In psychological physics, when you're going through trauma, the subconscious mind has a don't look at that, don't look at that, don't look at that. And that's a block. We call that a block. I hate that word, but that's what everyone's calling it right now. And that is actually a decoy that the subconscious mind uses, the self-preservation system, to divert your attention away from the point, the focal point, to keep you safe. Only this feels like it was done on purpose. And I'm going, that's a memory spell. That's a memory spell. That is exactly what that is. It's the exact same psychological match of what the subconscious mind does when it's trying to block you from looking at something because of amnesia. Amnesia is the subconscious mind's way of saying, don't look at that, that'll hurt you. But there's always trauma associated there. Nothing has trauma over stories. Look at how much we spend on them. So I'm looking at this going, okay, there's definitely no trauma here, but then why is the subconscious mind behaving like there's trauma associated to story when there's not? That's tampering. So I know who, but why? I know why. But when? I have an idea when, but how? That's what I want to know. I know how. I know exactly how. Those assholes rewrote the logical code. I got to think. But I can feel it. It's amazing. It's like, well, that's weird. It's literally a memory spell, which explains why we never sat down and said, you know what we need to do? A full academic discipline on story. Like, that's the first, only last academic discipline. That's all you need. We're going to talk about story, the end. Like, there is nothing else. Everything else is a part of this discipline. Like when I was doing my study in the psychology of education, I'm sitting there tracking it all out, and I'm like laying down all the mappings for the storyline for all of these disciplines, and I felt it in my brain, like, why is this resisting? And I'm like, there shouldn't be a resistance. And that's it right there. That's how I knew that there was something going on, is the amount of resistance. And then I would wake up and it would be gone. And I'm like, why can't I look at that? And then I would lay there awake at night and I would remember something like someone's tampered with story. Oh no, don't look at that. And you see this in Doctor Who, the 11th hour, when he says, you know that point, how many doors are there? And she goes, there's two. He goes, count them again. It's going to be located at the corner of your eye in the back of your mind where you know it's there, but you never quite look. That's where it is. And I finally found a way to bring it to the forefront, but every time I do, and I can feel it, it's resisting. It's like, no, don't look at me. Someone fucked with my brain. So I'm looking at it, trying to figure out why there's resistance without trauma. Well, that's easy. There's a spell here. So, oh, this is insane. And not one of us caught it. And I'm sitting here going, this is not logically making sense. So here's the question. Why don't they want us looking at story? I know why they don't want us looking at story. They don't want us looking at story because that's God. That's God. They literally put like a trick mirror and then God. So when you look in the mirror, you're never going to look at him. So he's literally behind the mirror. And I'm like, story. Story. Story is God. Oh, story is God, not God's story. No, story is God. Oh, that changes everything. That's powerful grammar. Real powerful grammar. And what's irritating is as I'm thinking about this, I can feel the resistance in my brain. And I'm like, someone put a logical fallacy inside of my brain. And as I think about this and as I look at it, it's fighting it. And I can feel it fighting it. And it's the same fight that I get when I'm working through trauma, except there's no trauma here. So I know exactly what spell they used. I know exactly how to undo it, which tells me, oh, I know, that's on purpose. Someone's up to something. I know exactly who. I know exactly what. And I'm just getting really, yeah, I found their lie. And that's it. This is what they were hiding. Now I know why. Now my concern is if I look away, will I forget? I need a marker. I'm going to put like a 1 on my hand. There we go. And I feel better. I got a 1. There we go. I will remember this. And that's it. Is I'm afraid if I take my eyes off the focal point, I will forget. And what are they even called? I need to remember. Thank you. There's silence. That's it. So I just need to keep my eye on the focal point so I don't forget it this time, which is why I recorded this video. And I have to rewatch this video so I can look myself in the eye and go, look right at the story. Oh, I can totally do like a whole thing now. Look right at the story. You can't take your eyes off the story. Don't take your eyes off the story. As soon as you do, you forget it. Remember the story. I will remember the story. I will remember the story. No, I will remember story. Remember story. Remember story. Remember story. Remember story. There's the spell. Remember story. Remember story. Remember story. Yeah, it's really. I'm going to try this on a few of my friends and see what they do. This is going to be interesting. All right. Oh, yeah. Remember story. remember story. Over and out.